Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome to Coffee and Football, presented by South Point Dodge. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined every day by Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton. Tell us where you're checking in from, what you're drinking, get your questions in. We're going to have Coach Bob Shipley joining us in a little bit. We got to talk some basketball, obviously, right off the top, guys, because Texas beats BYU yesterday. Moving on to the second round. They take them down 79-71.
First, Chris 2000's in the chat, and I always live up to it. So I said I'll eat a corn dog if Texas wins 20 this year.
This guy, look at him. Look at him in full screen. Take it in high definition.
Oh, yeah.
4K.
Yeah.
It's over.
No. ACB says not eat crow. I just said if they get the 20, then I'll eat the corn dog.
Well, they did it, Jerry. And I tell you what, it was Texas, similar to NC State 2 nights ago or 3 nights ago now, they controlled the game for the most part and got into double-digit leads midway through the second half. The other team made a run. A.J. DeBance is a stud, that's for sure, that scored 35 points against the Horns last night. But then it came down to crunch time, and Tremont Mark hit the shots on Tuesday night. Jordan Pope hit a big 3 on last night, and Texas moves on. Tremont Mark was money from the foul line to close it out. Big-time win for the Longhorns, unexpected for Texas. The Longhorns now in the round of 32, and they play a local team, Gonzaga's from Spokane, Washington. They're playing this in this game in Portland, so you think it's probably going to be a favorite for Gonzaga from the hometown crowd. But look, good stuff for the Longhorns, in my opinion.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff to unpack from that game. The first thing is, because we have young people in these chats too. If you were too young to see Kevin Durant play at Texas, they're a little different. KD averaged almost 11 rebounds a game, right? National Player of the Year. They're a little different in the way they do it, but that's essentially what it was. Like when I think some people were kind of like when Sean Miller said, well, we aren't going to stop him. That's what Bob Knight said against Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant had 37 points and 23 rebounds at Lubbock at Texas Tech. He had 37 and 16 at Oklahoma State. He had 37 against Kansas in the Big 12 tournament championship. They all said the same thing. Hey, look, man, when those guys go, we're not stopping them. And you could tell that the whole game plan was against DeBance in the first half. And Miller talked about it after the game, and it was pretty obvious. If he was going to make 15, 17, 18-foot fall-away jumpers, they were fine with that because they weren't fouling. The whole game plan against BYU was do not foul him. We will live with 18-foot fallaways. If he makes 2 or 3 of those, we're going to tip our hat because he's not at the free throw line, because he's not putting the ball on the floor and getting shifty against you. Texas had nobody fouled out last night. In the first half, the only guy that had 2 fouls was Jordan Pope. So it was a definite game plan because players will challenge shots more and take those chances if that's not a game plan. That was a clear game plan. If DeBonson was going to go out and make those shots, fine. But it wasn't happening. Nobody else was getting in the flow offensively. BYU was 0 for 8 in the first half from 3 until that 3 at the end of the half when Texas went zone. They didn't want DeBance to get a cheap foul on somebody and get to the paint. That was their only made 3 of the first half. And really, at the end of the day, that's the difference in that game. BYU is 4-22 from the 3. If you're in an NCAA tournament game and you go 4-22 from 3, if you hoist a lot of threes and you don't make them, chances are you're getting beat because these are really toss-up games. Texas, on the flip side, hit 8-22 from 3. And I'm here to tell you, the Jordan Pope 3, that play, but Swain made an unbelievable pass. That's a tough pass over all those tall arms to make it somewhat on target. But I don't think people will ever give Jordan Pope enough credit for how difficult of a shot that was. You saw the 3 the guy hit from NC State, who's 6'6", by the way, McNeil, in the right corner. But that play athletically and as a basketball player, Jordan Pope had to leave his feet and fully extend to catch the ball in the coffin corner where there's not much room. You can step on the end line extremely easily in that play. So he leaves his feet, fully extended, catches the ball, then has to go back, look, make sure you're not going out of bounds, gather, and shoot it over a 6'4" guard. That was a hell of a play by Jordan Pope. And it'll get lost in the shuffle of the game. But that was a hellacious play he made. That is a very hard play to make in the corner.
I will say this.
Come down and have to get the shot off immediately quick. That is a damn hard basketball play to make.
Yeah, I would say this too. The thing that I gathered from that was actually this is a scenario, Jerry, where in years past, I felt like Texas would dribble drive and just hope for the best. Hope for a foul, hope for a contact, hope for getting to the bucket and making a hard layup. Instead, Sean Miller said, wait a minute, let's slow it down, and got this play going in the first place. I thought that, and I wrote about it this morning, I think that the difference between Sean Miller and his predecessors at Texas, and I mean three of them, not just Rodney Terry, not just Shaka Smart or Chris Beard or Rick Barnes. The difference is Sean Miller's an offensive coach. I mean, he's an offensive coach, and he got them into a situation where that kind of kick out pass was available. And I felt it was thought it was strong offensive coaching. You don't win that game just with defense because you're not going to outscore AJ DeBanson.
You have
to be an offensive coach to win that game at some level, in my opinion.
The days of college basketball, and I know all these coaches, they say that because you have to play a level of defense, but the day and age of winning college basketball national championships on deep defense oriented are way long gone. They're over. And you have to have good offense. The whole key in all this stuff in NC State and Texas, that first game, it was 68-66, was neither team made shots they normally make. They just had an off game. It's not like, Texas was some great defensive team against NC State or NC State was some great defensive team against Texas. Dalen Swain missed 3 shots he normally makes all season. NC State, at the beginning of that game, they were missing shots inside 10 feet that most of the time you make. So there's some pressure, some nerves, but neither one of those teams were swarming and playing great defense. You have to be able to score the basketball. If anybody wonders where this game currently is at, there's an interview out there with Danny Hurley and Gino Auriemma, 14 national titles combined. And they said, would you rather have an offensive player and teach him to play good enough defense or a defensive guy that's not a really good offensive player? And their answer was very simple. I mean, those days and age, they're gone, man. You have to be able to score. You have to be able to score 75 when required. You have to be able to score 80 when required. And if a game gets really fast, you better be able to score 85, 87, 89, or even 91. If you can't, you aren't cutting down the nets anymore. And that's always been Kelvin Sampson's challenge at U of H is stylistically, it doesn't match what Danny Hurley and these system offenses are bringing. And we'll see if Kelvin can get over the hump. He may have his best offensive players he's had, not quite as good on defense, but best offensive players he's had. But if you can't go score it at high levels, you aren't winning in the NCAA basketball on the men's side anymore. The games become it's just following the path of the NBA. I mean, these teams are able to score the basketball. And I thought, look, Tremont Mark had 4 blocks last night. He had 2 on DeBanson. He obviously watched tape. And Matas had an unbelievable game. And a lot of people, I think some people are like, well, he's got the yips at the free throw line. No, he had no legs last night. He was all arm shooting at the end of that game. He's been 68.5 to 70% all year from the free throw line. That was clearly his worst game. And look, there's probably some nerves involved, but that guy was gassed. If you just go back and watch, there weren't any legs in the free throws. It was more arms. He was arm shooting that thing at the end last night. Continued growth of player, but Texas loses that game by 15 without Matas last night.
Yeah, 23 and 16, 23.16.
First Texas player ever with 20 and 15 in the NCAA tournament ever. Texas has been to 40 NCAA tournaments.
I just wish you would have made some free throws, to your point. that made the old ticker beat a little faster at times, Jerry, as you know. Hey, we need to say thank you to our friends over at South Point Dodge. We're got a lot of stuff coming up today. Actually, NCAA enacted some new football rules changes. We're going to talk about that. Bob Shipley's going to join us here in a minute to talk about some of the new ones. I think by and large they probably got it right. We'll talk about that. We also have the women playing today at 3:00 over at Moody. We'll check in there as well. And then we've got the team coming back, getting ready for Pro Day on Tuesday of next week as well. But first, let's say thank you to our friends over at South Point Dodge. If you've been thinking about upgrading your ride, now's the time. We're talking big price reductions on Ram 1500s, 2500s, and 3500s, plus Jeep Wranglers and Grand Cherokees. You heard Mike White, Texas softball coach, yesterday say he's got a Ram 15. Did he say 1500? Is that what he said he had, Jerry?
Yeah.
Can't remember. And here's the kicker. On Texas football listeners, get 90 days before your first payment, and South Point Dodge will ship your new ride anywhere you are. Over 600 vehicles in stock, ready to roll for tailgates or holiday road trips. Check out southpointdodge.com or swing by I-35 in South Austin. Get to the point. South Point Dodge. Again, big price reductions on Ram 1500s, 2500s, and 3500s at our friends over at South Point Dodge.
All right. Well, let's bring him in. Coach Bob Shipley. Good morning, Bob.
Hey, guys. How are y'all this morning?
Coach,
Right.
he immediately thought of you when they enacted some of these rule changes yesterday. First, let's talk about this one. If you get caught spearing, or whatever they call that nowadays, with leading with your head, targeting, you're out for the rest of the game, but nothing for no follow through on the second game. The second time you get called for it, you miss the next half of the next game. Okay. The third time you get called for it in a year, if it goes to that, you're out for an entire game. So they basically made it more structured, where it's not just one size fits all where you miss a half. It's an accumulation of it. What do you think of these new rules that they're going to go forward with in football?
Well, I think one of the best things I like about it is the fact that they're going to do it on a trial basis for a year. You know,
Okay.
that gives them a little more credibility if they need to reel it in or make some adjustments or whatever, you know, just instead of saying this is going to be the new rule from now on. I think it's good. I think, you know, how many times do we see a defender coming in and a ball carrier just lowering his head at the last minute, and it's unavoidable. But by law, by the rules, it's targeting, but it could not be stopped. It couldn't be helped. I like it. I think you're still giving the offensive players protection, and you know, you're still letting you're still going to get called for it if it's an accident, you know, but you're not going to. So really, if it happens in the first half, the rule hasn't changed.
Right.
For that person. It's when you do it, a second time. I just wonder how many times Jack Tatum would make it through an entire game.
Yeah.
But or Brian Westbrook.
Bryant Westbrook would have never played a game. He'd have been suspended all year.
Yeah. But I don't think there's anybody this last season that had 3 targetings in a season. So it just goes to show that it's probably not going to come to that. But if it had to, if somebody was being that careless and aggressive out there, then sit a game. I think that's I like it overall. It's so frustrating for us when we get called for something that couldn't be avoided. Yeah. And I'm sure it's frustrating for our opponents when they get called for it against us when it couldn't have been avoided. But it just seemed like some guys have a knack to be able to, right when they're going to get hit, to put their head down or something and almost like bait them into making that call.
I always thought, to your point, I agree with you. To your point, if the defensive player tucks his head first and then the offensive player does it second, it's actually the offensive player that's initiating the targeting. and it never gets called that way. That's one of the problems with the rule, right? But anyway, hey, what about this though? Josh Reyna brings up a good point, and this is something that, to your point, Coach, about how you want to see it, you want to see a year of data on a trial basis. Josh Reyna says it.
That's a good point,
guys. What do we do about guys that are headhunting in the fourth quarter? Because there could be, even if it's just one or two guys out there that saying, hell with it, I'm going for it.
Well, especially if it's an impactful game. Look, we were talking last night on our live cast, the run that TCU made and the quarterbacks and people they put out of games, to keep that run alive to the national championship game. There could be a little strategy in this. I would like to think that there's not players and coaches that are that devious, but it can happen.
Well,
I would say this: the interesting part of that rule on the look back to the fourth quarter point, Joshua Reyna, is hits on quarterbacks late in games.
Yeah,
that's what I'm going to be watching, is because that gives you an opportunity. If you're not really suspended following that, if you get that clean shot on a quarterback late in the game, like you said, Coach, I'm going to be interested to see the way they look at that on the 1 year look back. If the high hits on quarterbacks above the shoulders go up in the fourth quarter games.
That's going to be fun to watch. Not fun, interesting.
Yeah. One of the things they mentioned, and Coach, I wanted to get your take on this. Some people are like, are players really leading with their helmets? I think some young people don't remember kind of how vicious football used to be. I mean, there used to be no penalty for it. I mean, there were some collisions that, what do you make of the process of what we've seen with the leading with the helmet? I feel like the rule has actually been largely effective with making the game, while it has this issue of, these subjective calls that we don't necessarily always like the outcomes of or agree with the outcomes, it has made the game less scary at some level when these guys go in there blindly with plastic going, all they got to protect their head. What do you think that the rule overall has been good and had the effect that it initially wanted to?
Yeah, I think so. I think, it's those calls that are, could go either way, and you're like, oh my gosh, how is that targeting? And it's just the consistency by which you see it. And as you pointed out, you never see it called on an offensive guy who puts his head down after a defensive guy has already committed his head down. And so there's frustrating. But overall, having a son who was knocked out cold playing football, although it was in the NFL, you're seeing those smaller receivers, over the past decade. You've seen, the Jordan Shipley, the Wes Welker type guys be more prominent, and those guys, they don't have. They're susceptible, to that because they just don't have the beef and don't have the size, to take on a hit like that. But I liked the rule as a son who had two boys that were receivers that try to give them a little bit of protection. But overall, I think it's been good. I think there's been some injuries avoided, maybe even some catastrophic injuries avoided. But, back in the day, Jack Tatum, what his nickname was? The Assassin.
Yeah.
And literally, you could almost just take a guy's head off at his shoulders, and they just called it football, and the old timers still call it football. But like I said, that ain't your son out there being assassinated.
Yeah, I've got a tweet that Blake is about to bring up. If you wondered how tough it was on quarterbacks back then, we got to run this back. This is the black shirt defense Wyoming quarterback. Look at his helmet.
We shouldn't
Do
laugh.
you think that guy likes the targeting rule these days?
No shots to the head. Andy went low. They went
I load him.
low high. Oh, wow. Sideways. That's not Josh Allen, by the way. They protected Josh Allen a little bit better in the last 10, 15 years. You talk about the hits that Jack Tatum laid. I was in the Astrodome when Jack Tatum and Earl Campbell collided. There's been 2 hits in my life where I was at the game and the whole stadium kind of just went, it was Bryant Westbrook on the Notre Dame running back. Literally, I thought there was a cheer, but then a sudden silence because some people thought the kid may have been decapitated. Yeah. Randy Kinder was a running back. And then Jack Tatum hit Earl Campbell. And when I tell you that made a sound that like 10-year-old Bobby Burton went, like send a shiver down my spine. I was like, you heard plastic pop like crazy. But that's interesting. Bob, what about the other rule changes? A couple of them I think that are interesting. Offensive pass interference now down to 10 yards as opposed to 15. I think that'll be a good one. And then also one that was interesting is this fair catch rule. Did you dive into that at all? Where
I haven't.
Now if a team makes what you got, Blake? You're up. Now if a team makes a fair catch on a punt or a kick, they actually can create a fair catch kick immediately following. And the defense has to be 10 yards off the ball. So in other words, you literally could fair catch a ball at the 50 and try to kick a field goal with 10 seconds.
With no pressure.
Yeah, with no pressure. What do you think of that rule? Is that something that you agree with, or is this just them trying to add a little bit more spice to the end of games?
Yeah, I think it's I don't have a problem with change. I think people want to see new things from time to time and new strategies, and that's not a bad thing. I think there's always been some kind of quirky rule like that. I can't. Nobody ever utilized. I can't remember what it is. It's not coming to me, but that's not surprising. But so the thing about it is, he doesn't have to focus on a rush. He doesn't have to worry about the rush, and I think that's one thing that's going to enable kickers. Of course, different kickers handle stress different ways, but I would think just to know that you're not going to have the pressure and the sack, and it's just up to you. So there's.
Look. So 10 seconds remaining, Coach. 10 seconds remaining in a game, and you're punting from your own 20. Guy tries to fair catch it on his own 40.
That puts some pressure on a punter too.
But think about it that way.
Like don't shake it. Don't shake it. Don't shake it.
Yeah, you could catch it on your own 40, and you literally could have a 70-yard field goal attempt.
But there's no snap involved.
No snap, no rush.
So one of your 105 scholarship players now needs to be an Australian rules guy because he's been drop kicking his whole life.
Yeah, you can drop kick it. But the point is that I'm trying to make there is that could seriously change a couple of games this year.
Yeah.
Because if you get ball less than 10 seconds, you're gonna try to do a 70-yard field goal, or are you gonna try a Hail Mary? Because you only have one play. There's no chance you get two plays in.
Yeah.
I think people might try to do that and put two returners back to make sure they fair catch it.
And here's the other part of that. Tyler Sledge. Wonder if that'll make teams send the house to block the punt more. Put pressure on the punter. to create the short punt.
Yeah.
Even move your returner up 10 yards so he's in a position to catch a short punt. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's two ways you could put them vertically like that, have two guys back, one short, one deep. But I wonder if it's going to cause teams to do more of the rugby style kick, where it's more of a line drive and rolling, and it's not going to get a chance to be very hard.
Yeah, that's true too. Well, I mean, look, we talk about a lot of these, but the one that's going to be enacted the most, I bet, is the offensive pass interference penalty going from 15 yards to 10. Back in the day, it used to be, I mean, it keeps getting less severe for the offense, by the way. I don't know if the guys remember this, but it used to be 15 yards and loss of down on offensive pass interference.
Yeah.
Now it's just 10 yards and replay the down. It's kind of changed over the years.
You get more aggressive with push-offs at time, not worrying about a 10-yard penalty versus 15, potentially.
Yeah, Coach, you watched the basketball game last night?
Yeah, I did. I watched the second half. We
Yep.
were doing a live cast first half, and I didn't have a TV in this room. So,
Gotcha. Well, hey, what did you think of the Longhorns down the stretch? They won 2 games kind of in similar fashions.
Yeah, I felt like they played a little sharper than they did against NC State. And I'm not a basketball guru. I always joke and play the dumb football coach. Oh, is this still basketball season? But I thought the perimeter defense was really good, and also the interior defense was good. But overall, the thing that I thought we did well is offensive and defensive rebounding. I thought we were in a good place, and I was glad to see that we didn't. And sometimes it's scary. And, you guys watch a lot more basketball than I do, but sometimes when you've got that pretty good lead, but it's not out of range yet, and then a team hits a 3 or 2, a couple of threes or something, then all of a sudden your collar starts getting tight around your neck, and you're starting to freak out a little bit. They're pressing you, they're bracketing you, covering, whatever kind of defense they're playing, and all of a sudden you lose your cool. You just freak out, and start turning the ball over and stuff. And I was glad to see that we maintained that lead and hit the shots we need to hit at the end. Pope was huge, of course, and hit the free throws when we had to hit them.
All right, Coach, thank you so much this morning, man. We'll see you again next week. You have a good weekend. Enjoy your time, and we'll see you soon.
All right, sounds good. Hook 'em. You guys have a good show.
Take care of yourself. We got more coming up from Sean Miller post game, right? Blake, you want to go to that now, or what do you want to do?
Let's go ahead and tell everyone about a couple of sponsors this morning. Then we'll come back. We'll talk about Sean Miller. I'll show you the Sean Miller video, and then talk about the women's bracket challenge. You still got a little time for that as well. But first, Bobby, why don't you tell everyone this morning about the Changing Austin podcast?
Yeah, how do we build Austin's future without breaking from its past? That's the question at the heart of the Changing Austin podcast, powered by Amplify Credit Union. Joins host Stacey Armijo for bi-weekly conversations about how local organizations are shaping Austin's tomorrow. And this month, Changing Austin is kicking off its second season with new guests, including the head film buyer at the Alamo Drafthouse and the former president and chief programming officer of South by Southwest. You can visit www.changingaustin.com to catch up on the first season, then subscribe for season 2 wherever you get your podcast. Visit www.changingaustin.com to join the conversation today. Again, if you enjoy podcasts and want to think about Austin's future, try changingaustin.com.
All right, I am going to tell everyone this morning about Square, because support for today's episode of Coffee and Football comes from Square, which honestly, if you've ever paid at a food truck, a coffee shop, or local store, and the checkout took like 2 seconds, well, there's a pretty good chance that you've already used it. I see it all the time. You walk up, you grab your coffee or whatever, tap your card or phone, and boom, done. No weird register problems, no digging around for change, no waiting forever while someone figures out the system. That's because Square basically puts everything a business needs in one place. Payments, point of sale, inventory tracking, customer tools. even setting up an online store if you want to sell stuff on the internet. It's simple, it looks clean, and businesses can actually focus on customers instead of fighting with tech. And the cool part is Square works whether you're just starting out or if maybe you're established and running multiple locations. And right now, listeners can get up to $200 off Square hardware when you sign up at square.com/go/ontexas. That's Square, SQUARE.com/GO/ontexas, and run your business smarter with Square and get started today. All right, let's bring up that Sean Miller video here. This is in the locker room after their big win over BYU yesterday.
Ah! Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Oh.
Great job. Modest, great job. Great job. Great job. 16 rebounds. The thrill of victory in this tournament is you're about ready to feel it. If you're at the beginning stages of just like soaking it in. There's nothing like number one, being in this tournament, but there's nothing like advancing in this tournament. I mean, it's something that as a young person in the game, you envision, we're living it, we're doing it. And the toughness, the resiliency, I keep using that word to describe our team. Just when this season, when you're like, man, they lost a couple, are they going to be able to put it together? Bang, we got one, and we just hung in there. And the ending of our season, as we lived it, it wasn't what we wanted it to be. But we just, all of a sudden, man, took the next step. And defensively, we're playing at the highest level we played at all year. And guess what? Now this is March Madness. Magic is happening. All right? We have the opportunity and the ability to beat everybody. We just have to execute and be the best that we can be. But I'm really, when I say super proud, I mean, we left Dayton at 3:15 in the morning. We didn't complain. You guys didn't complain. We were at the media. We were doing everything yesterday. Yesterday's like a blur. You don't even remember it. And now, next thing you know, here we are today, all right? But just really want to credit the toughness, the leadership, the resiliency. We could take that next step, and the next step is the Sweet 16.
One, two, three.
Good stuff, Blake. Thanks for Texas Sports for making that available to social media for folks. That's good stuff, man.
Couple of things I wanted to hit on out of that is Gonzaga. Obviously, I have a little early look at Gonzaga on OTF.com this morning. Early lines out, Gonzaga's a 5.5-point favorite in that game. 147 is the over-under total. Gonzaga's Mark Few's one of the better coaches in the game. I think they'll play fast. They play fast anyways. They push the ball from inline to inline about as fast as any team in the country. They like to get into an attack mode in 5 seconds after the ball's in either off the rim or inbounds. They want to go fast. They play a little flow. They run some zoom. They run really good offensive stuff. And when you watch Gonzaga, I can tell you for a fact, when you watch Gonzaga, that is what Sean Miller's ultimate vision is offensively at the University of Texas. That's what he wants to look like. We'll see what happens down the line. This is year one. And the other thing I want to talk about is, there's a lot of discussion about the first 4 games. Some people are they shouldn't maybe be played. And it's not just a Texas fan base. It's all over the place. But these games have been unbelievable. I bet the ratings are going to come back from Texas, NC State, and definitely Miami, Ohio win over SMU. I think they're going to be higher than last year, and last year was the highest of all time. Since the first 4 games started, since 2013, I think it was. But there's been, and I'm not predicting this for Texas, by the way, because they're in Arizona's bracket. Even if you keep winning, then that ain't the matchup. VCU as an 11 in a play-in went to the Final Four. UCLA with Mick Cronin as an 11 in play-in ended up in the Final Four. There's been multiple teams that went on to the Sweet 16. I think the NCAA tournament has it right. I think the NCAA tournament has it right. And I think their ratings are going to be through the roof. The one thing about the Texas game is we talk about the game. I'm very interested to see the ratings of that game. That was that game because most people are going to tune in to watch AJ DeBansta, who's a great, great player, 10-time All-Star if he stays healthy. maybe more. That's who they're tuning into. And what it turned into was a great proof of concept for Sean Miller in year one. So people were tuning in to watch AJ DeBansta for good reason. But what it ends up being is a showcase for Texas basketball last night under Sean Miller. That game is going to have big ratings. It was a night game, and it had the best player in the country in it. And that's going to end up being a showcase game for Texas basketball is what that's going to end up being. And with Gonzaga, look, Gonzaga's favored for a reason, but all these teams are going to be favored ahead of Texas the more they advance. If you happen to get past Gonzaga and you play Purdue, Purdue's going to be a heavier favorite than Gonzaga is. So, you're not going to be favored in these games. But Braden Huff being out for Gonzaga is a big deal, I think. And I thought the winner of the game last night has a real shot against Gonzaga because Braden Huff, who I think arguably is their best player, is still out. He got hurt January 8th. He hasn't been playing since then. He had a dislocated kneecap, not quite ready to come back. He was 18 points, 6 rebounds a game. And without him, not the same team, a vulnerable team. And this tournament continues to be impacted in a major way by injuries this year. And you knock on wood and say Texas had a pretty good injury year. They have not had any majors this year. So they've had some good fortune from an injury standpoint, and you got to make the most of it when others don't. And Texas did that against BYU. BYU didn't make threes in that game, which helps, but you made the most of that opportunity. And Gonzaga is a little bit of a wounded team walking into this round of 32 game.
I got to say one thing that does bode well for Texas, in my opinion. The SEC right now is 5-1 in the NCAA tournament. Yep. Texas, of course, has 2 of those wins, but Arkansas, A&M winning, Vanderbilt winning. Texas, only team to lose yesterday was Georgia.
Yeah.
So SEC may be a little stronger basketball conference than maybe some preseason or in-season prognosticators contemplated.
Yeah, yep. I think the SEC has the best depth of any basketball conference this year. I think the Big Ten is the best up top. I think their top teams are all studly, and I think to your point, Bobby, the depth of the SEC is showing up in this tournament. I mean, look, St. Louis beat up Georgia really bad, but that was a make or miss game. Catchings, Georgia's third leading scorer, was 0 for 11, 0 for 5 and from 3 in that game. If one of your guys goes 0 for 11 and 0 for 5, you're probably going to get beat down in an 8-9 game. I mean, that in Georgia they're kind of a helter-skelter offensive team, and they were more skelter last night. But to Bobby's point, I think the depth of the SEC is going to show up in this tournament. Now, what's going to hurt the SEC in this tournament is Aiden Holloway, because Alabama, I think, will win game 1 against Hofstra, but after that, they're up against it. Well, that's a team that could have gone Sweet 16 or Elite 8. And, I mean, when your second best player is wherever he's at right now, that ain't good.
Couple of pounds of weed is where he's at.
Hey, I need to remind everyone, because time is ticking. Obviously, the men's brackets are locked in, which we'll get to here in just a moment. But the women's bracket, you have an hour and a half to lock in your bracket. You can use the QR code on the screen. I'll drop the link in the chat as well if you'd rather do it that way. But those you cannot make an entry after 10:30 a.m. Central Time. And I am happy to announce that Bobby said yesterday that if the men's contest went over 300 participants, he would bump the prize up to a full year of access at ontexasfootball.com. Well, we went well over 300 yesterday. I did clear out some of the brackets that no one filled in, even though they signed up. So, but we're still sitting over 300. So, y'all will get the winner will get a full year access to ontexasfootball.com. But be sure to do that women's one again. The password capital OTF. And guys, let's look at the men's right now.
Oh, Gary Hamilton.
So right now there's a 3-way tie for first.
Hey, Marcus is probably watching this.
I know. I feel bad for putting him down there at the end. Him and Rod, though, are tied at the end. Yeah. But there is a 3-way tie for first right now. Somebody's got to carry the OTF team. I'm happy to be that person. Ranked number 4. And then Jeff and Bobby are right on my heels, though. They got 130 points. I got 140. And then Jerry's right behind them, and producer Matt and CJ even at 120. But look at Jerry's. He can get up to 1,880 points. So he's edging out Matt and CJ right now. But yeah, those are the standings after the first
here's the problem with picking these games. How many people picked A&M to lose because you hate them?
Me.
Funny you mentioned that.
Me. Like the SEC's real. We were just talking about it, but when it came down to pressing the button, I just wasn't doing it, man.
So the
I just wasn't going to do it.
The three most missed games yesterday was A&M winning.
Yes.
VCU winning over North Carolina, which luckily I did pick. That's what gives me the edge over Jeff and Bobby right now. And then High Point winning. Those were the three most missed yesterday. So we'll see what happens today. It's a lot can happen. A lot of basketball left to be played. But yeah.
Hey, if Hubert Davis, if this ends up being your last game at Carolina, I wish you the best. But North Carolina can't give up 17-point leads, and coaches survive very often in an NCAA tournament. And those were late. That wasn't early. Like when Texas got up on BYU, this is an NCAA. Somebody asked earlier, why does Texas lose big leads? That's college basketball, man. It's a game of runs. I mean, BYU couldn't throw it in the ocean for about a 4-minute streak, and Texas was throwing it in from everywhere, in that little run. But then later in the game, I mean, it's a game of runs. Texas was slowing it down, milking the clock, missed 4 or 5, I think 6 threes in a row at that point in time. So you go on one of those runs, and then BYU can score. So on the other end, they're going to cut that lead on you. But that's what makes if nobody's ever been to an NCAA tournament, I encourage you to go once in your life. It's like no other sporting event that I've been to. I've been to the Olympics because you have 4 different fan bases packed in there because you have the 2 blocks of games. And if the underdog starts playing well, the whole arena is a Siena fan, right? Or whoever fan, Kennesaw State, whatever it is, unless it's a home game. But it's an amazing atmosphere because basketball is a game of runs, and you can just feel the runs. And then for a lot of these guys, it's their last college game. So the aftermath is, man, it's an emotional roller coaster in game. And for the team that loses, it's beyond an emotional roller coaster. It's an unbelievable sporting event. It's a game of runs, and it makes it just a great sporting event.
Well, I'm going to switch gears here because we have a super chat that's not about anything to do with sports that I need to get out of the way. And Bobby, I'm going to let you answer this, even though I know the answer. Juan Garza, thank you for the super chat. Is the OTF mug dishwasher safe?
It is indeed dishwasher safe, guys. It is indeed. Having used it multiple times over the last year or so, it is dishwasher safe. I hope everybody likes their stuff that they've been getting from us. It's always a good time to pick up an OTF mug or a hat. I will say this, Blake mentioned this, but because we went over 300 entries in the NCAA tournament bracket, we're upping the prize to a year's full subscription to ontexasfootball.com, as well as a hat and a mug. So best, and we're going to do that for both brackets, not just the men's, but also the women's. So best of luck to everybody out there.
Yeah. And again, only a little less than 90 minutes to get that women's one in, and the link has now been dropped in the chat. All right. Well, one topic that I've been saving this week is ESPN put out a list, guys, of the best quarterbacks in the modern era. And what I mean by that is of the 2000s, I guess you could say. So I thought we could take a look at this list. You got Vince Young at number 3 behind number 1 Baker Mayfield.
Wow, Baker Mayfield is behind this list, obviously.
Yeah, and then Colt McCoy at number 12. Obviously, I'm not going to break down all 50, but let's talk about the 2 Texas players and what else may catch your eye.
Well, the number one thing that catches your eye is number 1 is completely wrong. I mean, that's just hideous. I mean, you're putting Baker Mayfield over Vince Young, Cam Newton, and Tim Tebow and Joe Burrow and Deshaun Watson. Hell, Kyler Murray was better than Baker Mayfield. Lamar Jackson. I mean, okay, this is bad. Like, and I'm not a Baker Mayfield hater, but when you put him at number 1 on this list over Newton, Young, and Tebow and Joe Burrow, I mean, I think Baker did his own list here, and that ESPN let him publish. That's what I think.
I agree with you.
I mean, what are we doing?
Look, which one didn't win a national championship? Well, 1 and 7, 8, 9.
A lot of them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, no, but if you're going to choose the great quarterback, I mean, and I will say this, Baker Mayfield, really good passer. I mean, I never went into a game thinking, oh my God, Baker Mayfield is going to dominate me today.
No, Johnny Manziel at 13 is better than Baker Mayfield.
Yes, because you were worried that Johnny Manziel might dominate you that day.
Yes.
Baker Mayfield had, I mean, it's just, I don't agree with this, but these lists, they're all in retrospect, I think is the best way to put it. And I just don't think that Baker Mayfield is like, there's no chance I would take Baker Mayfield over Joe Burrow. None.
Zero.
I mean, Joe Burrow had, if there's anybody that has the right to say that they had a better year than Vince Young, it's Joe Burrow. Cam Newton is a maybe, but my point being, I mean, Baker Mayfield isn't in the conversation here, yet they put him number 1. That's what
yes. I mean, look, I think as time goes on, some of the guys they're a little underappreciated. I mean, I know he had a lot of talent around, but Matt Leinart at 18, he won a Heisman, finished third in the second, another Heisman. They won 39 games in a row. Yeah, I know they
34.
Got
34.
But I mean, let's rethink this. I mean, I think Sam Bradford's a better college quarterback than Baker Mayfield, because the Big 12 back then was a juggernaut.
Yeah.
I mean, Texas was really good. Oklahoma, I mean, that league was really good at that time. I think oh boy, I could take this list another way, and I don't know if I should. But I will.
Henry Jones at 46 is kind of a joke too, but that's a different story.
Yeah.
I mean, look, there were 6 players better in the SEC than Landry Jones this year alone.
Yeah. Where this list hits you the wrong way, besides who's ranked 1, is chat. See if you can pick up what I'm saying here. I'm just going to throw some numbers of ranked players at you. 10, 13, 19. Hold on. I got more. I saw some others. Hold on. Where was it?
31.
Yeah. 31. Y'all picking up on
41.
it? Chat, y'all picking up on it yet? Oh, 7.
Yeah. They did offer him, but
late.
Yeah.
Quarterbacks Texas didn't offer.
Yeah. The thing about this, and I want to also go on all of this discussion, and I want to say one more thing here, because I've long held this belief, and I know there are certain factions that think I'm an idiot for this, but I do not think Tim Tebow was a great quarterback. I just don't. And he played on a team that had as much talent as any team ever, and he was a fullback playing quarterback. I'm not this, like, when people start talking about great college quarterbacks of all time, Tim Tebow wouldn't be in my top 25. That's how deeply I feel about Tim Tebow's overhyped list. So when I see Tim Tebow in the top 5, I kind of blush, because I just don't agree with the list. And I know some people are going to disagree with me on that, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But I'm not a believer in Tim Tebow was, the greatest thing since sliced bread. So
yeah. I mean, I think that's what makes these lists fun. I don't agree. Tebow's such a great leader of a team that the rails could come off at any time, let's say, off the field. I think he fits. A lot of this stuff is how you fit schemes too. Like he was perfect for Urban Meyer and Dan Mullen's scheme. I think he was a winner. I think he's a winner. He played all talented team. But I think he was in college. I thought he was tremendous.
For me, he's right up there with Ken Dorsey. I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
If you had to ask me who I would take, Michael Penix or Tim Tebow, I'd take Michael Penix every day of the week.
But would you take Penix and Urban Meyer's?
Yes. I mean,
because the run threat would be gone. So they would never recruit him to the scheme.
I think Penix is good. Penix is more athletic than you think.
But he kept getting hurt. He's had multiple ACLs. Like that's Florida wouldn't have recruited him. I think it's so much a scheme driven.
We just disagree. I'll put it that way. Jalen Hurts is better than Tim Tebow. Same type of quarterback. He was the face of that program. I get it. I just don't think he's very good.
The problem with ranking for me, Jalen Hurts over Tim Tebow never got benched for somebody else. That's the problem.
That's okay.
I mean, he got benched at the school he signed with. And I think a lot of these guys are better pro prospects as quarterbacks, right? But that's the hard thing with the Jalen Hurts comparison for those guys.
He's better than Tebow. Always was. Tua was better than Tebow too. So that's the guy who replaced him with. So I'm just not I thought that Tebow had had some moxie to him and carried a great team or helped with a great team, but he wasn't a great quarterback. Once they one of the reasons they didn't figure out the zone read with him. Once they figured that out, he became a drastically less effective quarterback. That's just the bottom line, because he didn't have a second act. He had one act, and it wasn't overwhelming. Vince Young had an overwhelming first act.
Him and Cam Newton are the best college quarterbacks I've ever seen. Period. Okay. I mean, even Joe Burrow's great season. Cam Newton and Vince Young were totally different than anybody else. I hate it for Texas fans. I hate it when I say it, but I think the third guy is Kyler Murray. It was different than anybody else. He just played for Lincoln Riley, and they weren't playing defense at the time. If he had played on a team that played good defense, think that guy would have lost a game in college? No. But Cam and Vince are the two best college quarterbacks I've seen. That's just me.
Y'all thoughts on Colt McCoy at 12?
Love it. Some of this is a longevity award of sorts, right? But Colt's junior year was so fantastic.
Yeah.
Just so fantastic. It's hard for me to he's just such a pinpoint passer. And his teams were so good. I like where he's at on this list. I think do I think that Matt Leinart should be ahead of Colt McCoy based on winning a national championship? Maybe. But Colt's in the top 20 for me. He carried that team for 2 years, and not entirely. There were great players around him, but he was a very, very good quarterback.
Good discussion. A lot of crazy names on that list.
Rex Grossman at 37. I mean, there were three guys better than him in the SEC this year. I don't know where this is going.
That's what makes it such a fun topic to discuss.
Well, I don't know where it's going.
I'm getting to the age too where when you start talking about the top 50 quarterbacks in the 2000s, some of the people making up this list were not alive,
probably,
or 5 years old when Baker Mayfield was playing. I mean, it just, anyways.
Yeah.
Dylan Gabriel at 25. No Pat Mahomes, It's interesting list. Hey, guys, I've got to get going. I've got a meeting. I got to hit before I let you guys go. Jerry and Blake are going to take it from here. Make sure you get your entries into that women's tournament. Don't forget, we give you that stuff. Jerry finishes up his corn dog. But I've got to go. I want to say thank you one last time to one of our big sponsors. That is Hollow. They are socks, lightweight, supportive, and unbelievably soft. They're 3 times warmer than wool and still lightweight. Alpaca socks. They're built for the field. That's right. That's how they're cooler and warmer at the same time. They're a different type of material. It's called baby alpaca fibers, engineered for rugged conditions and designed to keep your feet dry, warm, and comfortable no matter where the day takes you. Hollow doesn't just make socks for the outdoors. They've also engineered them for everyday activity. They also are compression socks, hunt socks, trade socks. So if you're on a long shift for 14-hour days in boots, they give you your legs the support and feet what they need after the grind. For a limited time, Hollow Socks is having a buy 2, get 2 free sale. Head to hollowsocks.com today to check it out. That's hollowsocks.com for up to 50% off your order. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. You can support our show by telling them On Texas Football sent you. Again, buy 2, get 2 free sale at hollowsocks.com.
All right, Bobby, thank you so much, and we'll see you on Monday.
Hook 'em horns.
All right, Jerry, and if you don't mind, tell everyone about one of our favorites around here. That's Vaughn Lane.
Yes, it's first class without the fees. That's what this read is. I love it when the airlines advertise low fares and then hit you with fees for every single thing. Want a seat? Fee. Want to check a bag? Fee. What Wi-Fi actually connects? Good luck with that. Some carriers are now making you pay $80 or more just for a seat assignment on their cheapest tickets, or you roll the dice at check-in. Real relaxing way to start a trip, right? Nope. Vaughn Lane flips the whole script. You walk into a beautiful hotel terminal, no lines, no TSA, no stress. You board a coach with just 22 first-class leather seats, everything including Wi-Fi, snacks, beverages, hot towel service, complimentary meals on select departures, bags, bring them, no charge, and the internet is Starlink, which means it's fast, reliable, and actually works the whole trip, not just when the plane hits cruising altitude and the stars align. Plus, Vaughn Lane just expanded with more departure times between Houston and San Antonio and between Fort Worth and Austin. Vaughn Lane serves Austin, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, Fort Worth, Plano, the Woodlands, Nashville, Memphis, Atlanta, and Knoxville. Go to VaughnLane.com and enter the promo code OTF26 for $20 off your first ride. What is Vaughn Lane? Pretty easy to tell from this read. It's a private jet on wheels.
All right. And having some people ask about the name of the bracket for the women's. I'm going to put the thing up there real quick one more time, Jerry. It's that one on the left there. You can scan that with your phone real quick. I'll leave it up for just a few more seconds. That'll take you right to it. I'll also drop the link in the chat. And remember, the password is capital O, capital T, capital F, OTF, all caps. So 10:30 a.m. today, Central Time, is when those brackets lock in. So a little over an hour to make your picks and get it going.
By the way, women play at 3 against Missouri State. We need to mention, Blake, baseball, massive series.
Yes.
This weekend at Auburn. I mean, that's a top 5 matchup on the road in the SEC. It's alumni weekend, baseball alumni weekend at Auburn. Sure, that means Frank Thomas, maybe Bo Jackson, some of the guys will be around. Huge series. I think that will impact probably the SEC race when we look back on it.
Yeah, without a doubt. So I think Auburn's 5 in some polls, 4 in a couple of them as well. There's so many of them nowadays. It's hard to keep up. But yeah, man, that's tough. I mean, especially you open with Ole Miss at home. They're tough anyway. I still feel like they're very underrated. You lose midweek. So to me, it's going to be interesting to see, Jerry, how they bounce back. You know, we talked about adversity last week. You got your first taste of adversity on Friday night when you lost to Ole Miss, and then it slaps you in the face midweek. And I mean, I know, they didn't really roll out their best pitchers, but that's still no excuse to not get the bats going. So that's going to be the storyline for me this weekend is that offense going to be firing on all gears? How are you going to respond in what you assume is going to be a hostile environment? So we talked about adversity last week and they got a full scoop of it since we last discussed it. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out.
Yeah, absolutely. I need to bring something up because it is March Madness, and I want to give a hat tip. So Leighton Sharp says Lipan, Texas. Blake, you're familiar with this one. I do it double hat tip. They won the boys and girls state championships in basketball. I mean, that's not a feat that happens all the time.
1A.
And the coach there is tremendous. He's a tremendous high school basketball coach on the defensive end. His daughter was the MVP as a freshman of that team that won state.
Yeah.
So double hat tip to Lipan basketball. They pulled off something that's hard to do. They won state in both. In men's,
Well, and what's crazy,
boys and
Jerry,
girls
is
in the same
they're
year.
small. They're 1A school, and people are like, yeah, it's 1A. They don't shy away from competition. Beginning of the year, they play 5A schools, and they smoke them. And I'm not talking like, barely getting by. I've seen them beat 4 and 5A schools by 30, 40 points. I mean, that's just unreal, but that's all they do is basketball.
And Nathaniel Loper says it's a basketball dynasty right now. It absolutely is in Texas. It's absolutely it is the small school dynasty right now.
They're rolling. And then there's a little town near them named Huckabee. And they're kind of getting to that same point where they're just getting to be a really good basketball school as well. So kind of crazy.
Yeah. Hey, I'm going to answer a basketball question here. A couple while we're on it, because it's important. Mr. Cass, is Texas leading for Marcus Spears Jr.? I don't know about that. Texas is going to be right there for him. I think it's a little early on any leaders with that. Look, he's got Kentucky. He's got everybody after him. He'll be the number 1 or 2 prospect in the country. But I want to say this, and I love Marcus Spears, but I think his ranking in the number 1, people are going to expect a AJ DeBansta level player, Cam Boozer level player. I don't think he's there right now, or Darren Peterson. Can he be? I think he's going to be really good, like Chris Bosch-ish. But is for the expectations, if he were to eventually end up at Texas, I just want it to be like a little more realistic. Oh, he's going to come in and average 25 and 10. And I don't think that's who he is right now. He's a younger kid for his age. He's really, for his class, he's really talented. I think his best ball's farther out in front of him than some of these guys like that, like KD coming out of high school. I mean, it was as good as I've ever seen in college. Michael Beasley, those guys. I just want to keep expectations a little closer to where I think they should be for him. Different player, different age. Some of those guys were a little older coming out of high school than he will be. And then the other thing I wanted to somebody asked about NCAA tournament. That game, the Texas Gonzaga game's at 6:10 Central Time tomorrow night. And then David Keith Williams has a good question because portal opens. Basketball portal is April 7th through the 21st. It's going to be a wild ride, that I can tell you. There's multiple really good guards out there, but the asking price is over $3 million to start. All right, Mayo Hamilton. It seems like Coach Miller's approach is guard focused, considering Texas front court limitations. Do you think 27 recruiting focus will be more forwards and centers? Backup center, assuming Matas is back, and assuming some team doesn't come in and throw some crazy number at him and force a business decision. I think Matas wants to be at Texas first, which next year I think will be his final year in college. But so I think backup center. Texas needs to find that 4-man that can help a little bit with rim protection, have Matas's back, because that is not his strength. You want him to stay out of foul trouble as much as possible. So some of that's just really physical play on the interior, because that guy gets hammered all game long. People don't talk about it. But then, picking up the cheapies in defensive rotation situations, I think if they could have his back protected by a 4-man that has some rim protection, but he's got to be able to shoot the basketball. They got to be able to maintain spacing. Spacing's everything to me. And I think Texas will be after 6, maybe 7 out of the portal is my bet.
Well, some sad news, Jerry, while you're talking basketball. It's going on in the chat. A lot of people talking about it. Chuck Norris has passed away.
Whoa.
Yeah. 80, I think 86.
86.
Yeah. That's crazy. Absolutely crazy. So that was is in deep discussion about it right now. So I thought I'd bring that up. But crazy news there for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see here. We talked about the ESPN list. Some people have some comments about that. Daniel wants to know, do you think that Arch can make that list if he had a good season by the end of the year?
I mean, if Dylan Gabriel can. I would hope.
He was 25.
He was 25. So it's a recency bias list in some ways. I think win a Heisman or win a national championship.
Yeah, I can see that. And then Kay Sankey, is Sam Ehlinger better than 10 of the guys on that list? I think you could argue somewhat.
Depending on what your criteria is. The career record's not going to help him.
That's a good point.
Somebody's asking scouting report on Gonzaga. Tall, lengthier team, but not with the level of athleticism that a Duke has with their length. I think they always do a good job recruiting international. The freshman guard from Spain is a really good player. I think the Braden Huff injury is a big deal for Gonzaga as they move along in this tournament starting Saturday. And even if they win that, then they probably get Purdue. Then it becomes a big issue against Purdue, I think, if he can't play. But Gonzaga look, they want to push it. They are a transition offense. They are forced transition offense. Last night, you didn't see it if that's the first time you watched because they couldn't throw it in the ocean from a boat in the first half. And neither could Kennesaw State, or Kennesaw State would have won that game, quite frankly. But they're very well coached on offense. They're a very difficult guard. They have on defense, very difficult for an opponent guard. They've got a lot of height, length. They didn't shoot the ball well at all last night from three. They didn't. That was, if you watch Gonzaga a lot, you'd probably say that's the worst I've seen them play this year. Yeah. I think the issue St. Mary's, I think, ran into it. I think that conference, we'll see if Santa Clara versus Kentucky. When you don't play a lot of competition for 2 months, 2.5 months during the season, I think it can bite you at times. Like, this isn't one of Gonzaga's better teams. The Gonzaga's had some teams from 16 to 2022-ish where you're like, that team could win a national championship. And they got close. This isn't that team. This team doesn't have that level of talent. I mean, some of those teams had 3 first-round picks, 2 first-round picks, and Drew Timme. I mean, those teams, Suggs, Kispert, I mean, those teams were uber talented. And they've had a great run of international players. This isn't one of those teams. They're good, but they're gettable, and they're 5.5-point favorite, and they probably should be favored over Texas. But can Texas win the game? Yeah, absolutely. I think any of these games can be won. I mean, hell, Duke almost lost yesterday. They have bad injury problems right now, but, they almost lost that game. And clearly, if they played 10 times, that would be the closest game of the 10. So anything can happen in the NCAA tournament. That's for sure. That continues to be proven out. But Gonzaga's favored. Like I said last night, BYU is favored for a reason. It was 1.5, 2 points is a pick 'em type game, but they were favored. They've shot 422 from 3. I mean, and that ain't going to cut it. And so if Gonzaga doesn't shoot the ball better, or if Texas has a 4 for 22, they will lose that game. So you have to shoot the 3 well enough. If you're going to get up to 20, 21, 22 attempts, you need to be 6, 7, 8 makes at that point. Because if you have, it's simple analytics in some of these games. BYU had 4 made threes. Texas had 8. I mean, so that's 12 points BYU had to make up inside the 3-point line. And they weren't going to out-rebound Texas, so how were they going to do that? DeVance would have had to score 45, and he only got to 35. I mean, that's just – the analytics part of this is real. I think Gonzaga is a solid basketball team, not nearly one of the most talented teams, and I think Texas can win the game. I think one of the keys in this game, Matas or Ike, who can stay out of foul trouble. That's going to be big tomorrow night. Which big man who plays very physical is going to stay out of foul trouble?
Jerry, before we get out of here, I need you one more time to let everyone know about South Point Dodge.
I can do that if I can find my read. Give me a second on this. I think I pulled up the wrong read.
I tell you what, while you do that, Jerry, I'm going to tell everyone, don't forget to follow On Texas Football on social media. We're on all of them at this point, basically. I got them up on the screen. The majority of them are at On Texas Football, including right here on YouTube. But on Facebook, which we have a lot going on over there, it's Texas Longhorns News. So stay connected to us for our latest news and updates, and then also over at ontexasfootball.com. And with that said, Now I'll let you tell everyone.
Now I'm ready. I pulled up the read. Hey, Longhorn fans, the spring is here and the summer is around the corner. Hey, last year they wrapped up a year-end sales event. They have another sales event right now at South Point Dodge. If you've been thinking about upgrading your ride, now is certainly the time. We're talking big price reductions on Ram 1500s, 2500s, and 3500s, plus Jeep Wranglers and Grand Cherokees. And here's the kicker on Texas football listeners. Get 90 days before your first payment, and South Point Dodge will ship your new ride anywhere you are. Over 600 vehicles in stock, ready to roll for spring football tailgates, spring games, spring break, which is almost over, and summer travel. Check out southpointdodge.com or swing by I-35 in South Austin. Of course, at the end of this read is always the same. You get to the point at South Point Dodge.
Well, it will be a busy day for Texas teams. You got baseball, you got softball, women's basketball. So it's all kinds of viewing today, Jerry. And let's see, I think women's basketball will be at 3 p.m. at the Moody Center as they take on 16 Missouri State. I actually saw a little bit ago that Missouri State back in the day turned down Vic to be their head coach.
Oh,
so
man.
Some interesting history there.
Maddie Booker may get one extra minute in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, definitely. Drive that point home. And then softball will take on Baylor at 6:30 today. That game will be on the SEC Network Plus. And then a top 5 matchup, number 2 Texas versus number 5 Auburn. And that'll be on SEC Network Plus at 6. So you got Texas sports all afternoon, Jerry.
And you're hate watching NCAA tournament from the men's side today, because I know there's always hate watching. That's why all of us missed the A&M game, or most of us. Akron at Texas Tech. No JT Toppin. There's a hate watch opportunity.
Hey, I got Akron in my bracket.
Now, a lot of people are picking Akron. I'm interested to see what Hofstra fan signs they hold up against Alabama. That could be pretty funny if they're allowed in. And I think there's some interesting games coming in the NCAA tournament later today. One I think is very interesting is the 7-10 Miami, Missouri.
There you go.
If Missouri wins that's going to be like an ultimate show of strength in the SEC, because that means a lot of the lower half teams that made it to the tournament are walking out winners. Right now, Georgia's the one that hasn't. But if Missouri beats Miami, because I think Texas would have finished top 5 in the ACC this year, my personal opinion. They finished, 10th in the SEC? If Missouri gets that game against Miami, that's a really good show of strength for the SEC today. But we'll see. Toss-up games.
There you go. All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football, presented by South Point Dodge. We want to thank them, along with the Changing Austin podcast, Square, Hollow Socks, and Von Lane for sponsoring today's show. Don't forget to go fill out your women's bracket. You got little less than 1 hour to lock that in. See if you can win the the prize of the full year access to ontexasfootball.com, along with the mug and the hat. And I know we got bases loaded coming in a little bit, Jerry, but what's later today besides that?
We're going to have a live watch with us for the Texas Gonzaga game Saturday night. I think Jeff Howe, myself, anybody else that wants to jump in, we're going to do a live watch with us for that game. We get to that point because this is a game to go to the Sweet 16. So it's obviously it's a huge game for Texas basketball. They've gone beyond now for me expectation they had with one win in the round first 4. But we're going to do a watch with us Saturday for that game. We'll be back with the afternoon live stream, Rod Babers and myself, from 3 to 4 today.
There you go. Okay, well, we hope you all have an outstanding weekend. Lots of Texas sports today to take in, so be sure to do that. We'll be back on Monday morning. So for Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you then.